That's Savages, Ice 9 Kills here at WAAF by request on the text line to the 603. And welcome Chris Jericho to the WAAF studio.
I am excited. I have been around the world to almost every radio station in the United States. I don't think I've ever been here before.
Yeah, this one last cherry to pop.
Check it off the list.
Check it off the list.
And I was getting a little insulted that I was never invited. So when I got this invite, no, I actually had a party. It was exciting.
Oh, well, congrats. And you took the red eye to get here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which we were just talking about because I took the red eye back from LA a couple of weeks ago. I hate it. You love it.
Love it. Love the red eye. I don't like traveling from west to east because you lose a day. This way you can get a little snooze, have a couple drinky winkies on the plane, wake up, and you're exactly where you need to be. Boom.
Plus, all the passengers are less douchey.
Well, not
because
sometimes.
a lot of them are sleeping. Not all of them.
Some of them get drunk sometimes, though, and make noise and yell and scream and sing. There was one time I was flying to Philly, and there was a guy just causing super disruption on the plane. And
with you there?
Well, what am I going to do? Attack him?
I don't know. I mean, you're a big, like.
Well, I was the stewards. The flight attendants, let's be politically correct in this day and age, are saying there's nothing we can do. We've cut him off. And he was just yelling and screaming. So anyways, we get off the plane. I go to the bathroom at the stalls of the urinal. And I look over and this guy's standing right beside me, the drunk guy. And he has his briefcase down on the ground in between us. So,
Did you pee on his briefcase?
Oh, yeah.
Attaboy.
I peed in his briefcase. The zipper was open. Sweet revenge.
I had a guy open up a bag of Cheez-Its and like purposefully spill them on my lap and then try to get him.
Oh.
And I just looked at him and I was like, you will lose that hand.
Yeah.
And I promise you when we get to the gate, because I was flying back to Boston,
yeah.
I was like, there will be state troopers there to arrest you.
That's right.
I will kill you. And then when I landed, it just so happened that one of my friends who is a state trooper and works at the airport just happened to be there. And I get off the plane. I'm like, dude, what's up? And the guy looked at me like, oh, she was serious.
Yeah. I'm going to put that in the list of the worst pickup attempts ever.
Yeah, spilling Cheez-Its in my lap. Yeah.
Is those Cheez-Its in your lap? Yes.
Well, you have been doing a ton of press.
Yes.
Because now I have to ask you. I had to write them all down.
Okay.
Because there's
a few things.
There's WCW, the ECW, the WWF, then the WWE, and now the AEW, where you are.
Le Champillon. Right. That's good.
I have
feel
a
like
button
there's
for you now.
Alphabet soup going on.
It's a lot of them.
A lot of
and now you're
letters.
at AAF, so we can add more alphabets to that.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, we're excited. We're here today in Boston because our big show, the second episode of Dynamite, AEW Dynamite, is tonight on TNT. More letters. But we're finally off the ground, up and running. We had a huge debut last week. It was a big success. And after planning for this new company for almost a year, longer for some, here we are up and rolling and showing people what we do and who we are. And I think when we announced the Boston show here, we sold the place out, I think, in an hour.
Yeah, Bostonians really like all types of fighting.
Yeah.
They like boxing. They like mixed martial arts. They like wrestling.
Barroom brawls.
Yes, all of it.
Yeah. Front lawn fights.
Drinking and violence. We are into
Irish.
It. Yes.
We drink and we fight and we fight and we drink and we drink and we fight and we drink. Hey. So it's always cool to come to Boston. It's a great wrestling town. It's a great Fozzy town. It's a great Chris Jericho town. So it's always cool to be here. And there's a real buzz about AEW and the fact that it's our second show and people are wondering what's going to happen tonight. And there's a lot of developments in our weekly story that we tell. So
and you are
Le Champillon. You like that, don't you?
You're a button now.
I like that.
Yeah,
I'm a button. I like being a button.
Yeah, you're a button.
Yeah. You never know what people are going to pick up on, and that just seemed really obnoxious and funny to me. I'm going to call myself Le Champillon, and it's hard to say if you're not from Canada. And
which I am not. I have no French accent whatsoever.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like, so you're like a little champion. No, it's Le Champion. Le Champion. Le Champagne.
So are you bilingual?
No. I just...
you just know how to pronounce it.
Kind of, yeah. I'm sure if there was a true French Canadian here, they would be saying, that is not correct, see? Is that about?
And then you could correct them for how they're butchering the English language.
Yeah, and just smack him in the stupid face.
Yeah.
Sorry. So it's just another element, continuing to come up with new stuff that makes people, gets people into what Chris Jericho is doing. You always want to evolve and reinvent, and Le Champillon is the next step of that.
Well, you're going to hang out with me for a bit, right? I'm going to pound some coffee into you.
Yeah, there's a couple barricades went down on the door. Some
you're
iron
not allowed
bars
to leave
in the windows.
now.
I feel like I'm in a little bit of a hostle situation here.
I got duct tape that says I can make you love me.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, boy, gotta love Boston, baby.
So I definitely want to. Usually we do all the music headlines in the 1 o'clock hour, so I want to talk tunes with you.
Sure.
want to play some Fozzy, talk about the new album
We have
that's
a new
coming
tune.
out.
It's our 5th consecutive top 25
I know.
song.
So we got to talk about when the record's coming out. I got to get all the gossip, and we'll be back more with Chris Jericho after this. All right, so we're sitting here with my co-host for the hour. Chris Jericho is joining me in the WAAF studio.
Yes, I'm here.
It's not often that I get somebody in here to hang out with me.
I'm excited. Like I said, the whole concept of being here, purple hair that you have is amazing.
Thank
it's kind
you.
of like a yellow brick road. Just follow it, and you'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah, right after I dye it, there's usually purple fingerprints in it.
Yeah. I used to do that in my hair when my hair was about this length, and I cut it. But when I was this length the first time, I would dye the tips either bright purple or bright red or whatever it may be. And when you put it in there at first, it looks great. Then your first shower,
it
looks like
it looked like you slaughtered a Muppet in the shower.
Yeah, a unicorn threw up in the shower.
All right, so I need this visual because you're a big, tough wrestling guy.
Well, I play one on TV.
Okay, you're still a sizable human that's intimidating in presence.
Yes.
I want to know, are you at the salon in a cap with someone putting little foils on the end of your hair? Or are you at home just grabbing your ponytail and dunking it in the dye? Like,
No,
I need the
would,
visual of Chris Jericho.
No, it would be with a little foil in your hair. I went through the highlight thing where they put the foil all over. And then when I started growing my hair back, I said 2 rules. No ponytail and no dyeing. I'm just going to let it go where it goes. So that's where I'm at. So there is no more foils. But Rich Ward, the guitar player in Fozzy, whose hair is longer than mine, way longer than mine, he will still get the highlights and does do the foils.
It's really hard to look like a badass at the salon, man.
It's hard to look like a badass. It's hard to look like a true rock star with the foils. It takes away a lot of the street cred for sure.
Well, you talk about Fozzy. You have a new album coming out. All I've been able to see is spring of 2020.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So we're on Sony now, right? Which is a completely different world. It's the major machine behind you. And we just did a show with Iron Maiden a couple weeks ago at a stadium in Los Angeles. So we put together a tour around that stadium show, and then Sony said we want a song to promote the tour, which is going to promote the stadium show to get keep Fozzy's momentum going. Because like I told you, we had 3 top 10 songs
off the last
record.
album.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we are in the midst of writing, had some songs that were done. Nowhere to Run is the one that we chose. Sony loved it, and we released it, and it's now our 5th consecutive top 30 single. Like I said, I think it's at 25 right now with a bullet. And is the rest of the record done? No. Are we working on it? Yes. And I think that's just how it is nowadays. For us, growing up, a band would put the record out, and then you'd take a single off it. You'd take another single. Things have changed now with streaming and YouTube. If you have a video,
you can release a song.
You release it whenever you want. Now, there will be a record coming, but I would say, as a prediction, that there'll probably be another single out before the record comes out. Because if you're looking at April of 2020, and the record is called 2020, so it better come out in 2020.
Or it's just going to be dumb.
The whole market
dumb
is
name.
Is a nightmare. So I think probably in January they'll want another single from us, considering that it's October. So this Nowhere to Run will probably go up until about November, where it'll lie, maybe a little bit in December, and I bet you they'll want to keep it going in January. So things, like I said, things have changed, and we're open to it. When you have Sony behind you, with all of the power they have, telling you what they want you to do, as long as they have a vision, I never have a problem with that.
Yeah. Is there another band besides Iron Maiden that literally would inspire an album based on they got you to do a stadium show, and then you based a tour around the show, and then an album around the tour?
Well,
it's Iron freaking Maiden.
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about that, it wasn't all dictated that way. It wasn't like, we're doing this all because of Maiden, but it all kind of worked in and tied in. But they invited us to do that show, which was September 15th. I got invited November, I think, 12th last year.
Yeah.
So 10 months earlier. I mean, they asked us I got an email from their organization saying, do you want to do a show with us in September? And
How quickly do you type yes in the email?
Well, I was like, a show with who? I'm like, a show with Iron Maiden, you wanker. I'm like, I thought you might have another band. And I'm like, September, that's like 2 weeks ago. He said, no, next September. So that's how far ahead those type of bands plan.
Yeah.
So when you get that sort of, that sort of a leeway to put something together, we had plenty of time to get it done and get it rolling. So we did kind of put things together around, because you don't just walk into a show with Iron Maiden in a stadium or anywhere without having, you could be the best band in the world. You still got to be road ready, which is...
You got to be road ready, and you got to be ready to not embarrass yourself when Iron Maiden comes out after you and mops the floor with you.
Well, and then you have to go in there with the attitude of, we're going to mop the floor with Iron Maiden.
Right.
I mean, it's not going to happen at a Maiden show. But if you don't have that attitude, the fans will sniff it out like sharks in the water. So you got to go out there like all guns blazing, right in your face, and just say, "Hey, here we are, and we're going to rock you," and that's what's going to happen.
They are one of the greatest live, performing rock bands ever.
Their show right now, the production is insane.
It was just here in August.
Yeah.
It was the plane at the beginning. Yeah. I mean, those inflatables don't even look like inflatables.
It was funny. We were looking for the plane before the show, you're backstage, and it's cool because listen, we're pros. We're here to do a job, and we got stuff to do. But just from a fan standpoint, it's like, where's the plane? Like, where is it? It's like it's in that little box over there. Where they pack the raft to go to the beach. This is the box of plane that blows up, and like you said, when it blows up, it looks insane.
Yeah,
it looks like
it looks real.
Fokker or whatever the hell it is.
And it's spinning, and the lights work, and that's just for one song.
And it works for Iron Maiden because it's Iron Maiden. Like if Fozzy had that, you'd be like, "What's this inflatable plane doing?" But it's Iron Maiden, so it just makes everything that much cooler.
That's right. Well, let's talk about Nowhere to Run, obviously, because I want to play it.
Yes.
So coming off of the album 2020, which is coming out sometime in 2020.
Exactly, we know that for sure.
This is Fozzy on WAAF. That is new Fozzy, Nowhere to Run here at WAAF. Woo! Chris Jericho here in the WAAF studio with me.
That was recently voted the greast song of all time.
Was it?
In Tibet.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know they were into rock music in Tibet.
Oh, they're into it.
Well, I got to be honest, way back in the day when Fozzy started.
Right.
And I'm sure you've heard this a lot, and it's a stigma that you kind of have to go over. Whenever someone has success in another field, and then they decide they want to be a rock band, everybody goes, okay, because actresses have tried it, athletes have tried it.
Right.
And, I was like that too, like, oh, really? Now, we got to. But you're a rock guy. Everybody that I've ever talked to is like, wait until you meet Chris Jericho. He is such a rock guy that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's how you grew up.
The difference for me is I didn't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to try to be a rock star. I've been doing it since I was 13 because when I was a kid, I decided I wanted to be in a rock band and I wanted to be a wrestler. So I focused my life on those two decisions.
It's really going terribly for you.
I didn't really care when people said, you'll never do that. It's like it didn't bother me.
Right.
What you think or what they think or what she thinks or he thinks is what I think. And here we are all these years later, and I'm doing both of them. And yes, we did have to work twice as hard to get people's respect at first. I'm sure Taylor Momsen from Pretty Reckless will tell you the same, or Jared Leto with 30 Seconds to Mars, That's fine. We knew we had a great band. We knew we were writing some great songs, and we knew that it was just a matter of time before we started getting to the next level and the next level and the next level. And here we are there to the point where we're, like I mentioned, like I keep saying it, but to me it's like 5 top 30 songs in a row. I mean, that's something to be proud of.
Absolutely.
I'm very proud of that.
And a multitude of belts at this. It's like both sides of your career.
Yeah, but for you talking about the rock and roll side, that's only because of the songs.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I'm a wrestler or butcher or baker or candlestick.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's the songs.
It's either good music or it's not. So that to me is the true test. And it's been going great.
And to be able to manage two completely separate careers and have them both be successful at the same time is not an easy thing either. It's like an athlete trying to play two sports.
Yeah, and for me, I haven't been full-time in wrestling for probably 8 years.
Yeah.
People think I have because I pick and choose my spots and make sure that everything has a real weight behind it when I'm doing something in wrestling. But other than that, I mean, I think I had 6 matches last year total, maybe 5 the year before that total. So this year I think I've had 4 or 5. So it's not like it's 4 days a week like it used to be. And as a result, because when you start catching lightning in the bottle with a band, especially in this day and age when it's harder and harder for a band to break out, you have to take the advantage of that and build upon it, which is what we've been doing.
Who would have thought that it would be healthier in the long run for you to be in music as opposed to wrestling? But physically, it's got to just be a brutal beating on your body.
From the rock side?
No. I'm saying that the rock side, I would assume, is easier than the wrestling side.
I sweat way more with the rock band, with Fozzy. Because if we're headlining, we're doing 75, 80 minutes, and it's nonstop. There's singing and jumping and dancing and running and moving, and it's pretty hard. And plus, the melody lines are very high, so it takes a lot out of you to hit
the notes. Yeah.
Wrestling wise, if you start getting tired, you could just put somebody in a wear down hold or a rest hold, or fall outside the ring and yell at some fat kid in the front row and get your breath back.
You can do that at a rock show.
Not on our shows. We don't have time for that. So, I always say I'm always in the best shape after a 3-4 week Fozzy tour for sure. But wrestling wise, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, you can take your bumps and bruises, and it's a live stunt show. We do have control in what we're doing, but things can happen at any point in time. So that's why I think for me it was smarter to accept fewer matches per year, because then you can still deliver them at a high level, but not have to worry about, okay, now I have 3 more to do this week. Like, oh, those days are long gone for me, and deservedly so.
Not surprising that football is a big topic of conversation around here, and, aging football players and health, and then obviously injury, CTE, that kind of stuff. Does that affect you at all, worrying about your long-term health? Have you had a lot of head injuries in your wrestling career?
I haven't. And obviously we've been cognizant of that for probably the last 8 years or so.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Chris Nowinski from Harvard started the whole kind of studying the brain and concussion issues, and created the whole organization that works with the NFL and the NHL and the WWE and the AEW today. Local guy. So I've known about it, and we remedy it. Sometimes you still might get your bell wrong. I've been pretty lucky. I haven't for a long time. And if I did, it was never anything serious. So once again, you got to know your body, know if something feels off, and get it. It's show business. If you have to end a match because you're hurt, do it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's not like a real game or something like that. I mean, it's a real injury, but we can tell whatever story we want to. So I think that's something that's been a lot more, people have been a lot more cognizant in our business for the last 10, 15, 20 years. Whereas before, you could break your leg and still like, the show must go on, must finish match. And now it's like, sorry, dudes, broke my leg, I'm out of here.
Let's talk about when you were growing up and you were dreaming about being a wrestler and being a rock star kind of simultaneously.
Right.
What wrestler were you looking at that you wanted to emulate, and then what rock stars were inspiring you to want to play music?
To me, it was always about the connection with the audience, and the guys that I loved in wrestling were kind of rock stars. I mean, Hulk Hogan was the biggest one as far as just being a amazing performer, working the crowd, knew exactly who his crowd was. Randy Savage was another one. But when I first started wrestling, I wanted to be the ultimate rock and roll frontman in a wrestling ring, because I knew I would never be 6'10", which was in vogue at the time. So I couldn't be the biggest guy on the show, but I could have the biggest charisma and the biggest personality. So I wanted to be Paul Stanley or David Lee Roth or Mick Jagger, Bruce Dickinson, those types of guys inside a ring. And same thing even to this day as a frontman. I mean, you want to be like those guys who connect with the audience and make sure you have a great time. They're kind of the party host. To make sure that things go right, and if the crowd is a little bit low, well, then you make them a little louder. And if you're going in the right direction and you need to change to the left direction to get a better response, you can do that. And the best guys are able to listen to the audience and move and morph and change their show accordingly. And that goes whether you're wrestling in front of a live audience, playing a show in front of a comedian, Shakespearean play, anything in front of a live crowd. You have the power to get the reaction you want, but you have to be connected with them and know that you have control over them if you're good at what you're doing.
What albums, like for me, when I was growing up, that really made me a rock fan were Pyromania and Operation Mindcrime, Queensryche, and Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. Because, well, I mean, it's Bon Jovi.
They're all great, but they're all great records. For me, my first band that I was super into was the Beatles. And when I say super into, like I knew everything.
Yes!
I knew who Magic Alex was, and I knew what the Blue Meanie was, and I knew what Ginshi meant.
I'm so happy that you're a Beatles fan. That makes me so happy.
And this was when I was like 10 years old. I don't know, I just got right into it. So when I switched from elementary school to junior high school, I noticed that, like, at this time frame, like the early 80s, it wasn't cool to like the Beatles. The Beatles weren't cool back then.
Yeah, no, because that was what your mom and dad listened to.
As weird
which
as it
is who got
sounds.
me to love the Beatles, because I listened to it at home.
Right. So when I went to my first day of junior high school with my self-made Beatles shirt, homemade shirt, all I saw was like all the pretty girls were wearing like Ozzy shirts and Judas Priest shirts and Iron Maiden shirts. Well, who are these bands? I better like listen to one of those bands, or none of these girls are ever going to want to talk to me. So the first one that I got was Ozzy, Blizzard of Oz. I bought it for $2 at a used comic book shop. And that kind of opened the door, like, oh, wow, there's a whole other world out there, which led, so Diary was huge, The Master of Puppets, Power Slave by Metallica. Then I got into Kiss Alive was a big one for me. Pretty much the standards, but it all stemmed from the Beatles that took me straight into to straight heavy metal.
I always tell people, there's a line, and you either got to be on the Elvis side of the line or the Beatles side of the line. It's very rare that somebody's passionate in love about both, and I'm Beatles side of the line, like all the way.
It's weird too because there's also another one where it's Beatles side versus Stones side.
Yeah,
Like
I'm still going Beatles.
When I was a kid, and I would have too, but a couple of years ago, I started thinking, the Stones have a point. There's also when I was in high school, it was a Priest versus Maiden who was better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's always these great debates that you would have over which band is better, because everybody was into music back then. Everyone was into heavy metal back then.
Well, we've been talking so much about Iron Maiden that maybe I should play Aces High because we talk so much about the plane.
That's very apropos.
All right, so we're going to play some Iron Maiden. We'll be back. Chris Jericho live in the WAAF studio with me. Right back in high school, Chris. Right back in high school. Aces High, Iron Maiden, Chris Jericho.
I used to play that song in my high school band.
Did you really?
Yes.
How did the girls respond to that?
They didn't like that one. So we always had to know, for as many Peace Cells and Creeping Deaths and Aces High that we knew, we also had to know Talk Dirty to Me.
Yeah, of course.
Round and Round.
Did your high school bass player know? Could he keep up?
I was the high school bass player.
And you could keep.
Yeah, I was really good. We thought we were playing it right. It was pretty close. It was pretty close. When you're 16, just playing live with two other guys. It was magical, right?
Yeah.
So I think I played it fairly quickly. And at about 18, I just stopped progressing. But anything off the first Iron Maiden record, I could pretty much fake my way through it.
Well, we've been talking about your wrestling and your rock and roll career, but you are a modern day Renaissance man. Somebody chimed in on the text line talking about how you inspired their 18-year-old with your books.
Oh, that's cool.
And so you've got your books, you have your podcast, you've got your radio show. You're kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, all that stems from what we talked about earlier about wanting to do these two separate things that were seemingly impossible to do. And then when I got, to the top in wrestling and got, this great start, this great position with Fozzy, now anything that I try, you become dangerous because you can make it work. So I do things that I think will add to kind of the excitement of the Chris Jericho brand, stuff that I enjoy doing. I mean, Talk is Jericho is my podcast. We just had our 600th episode last week. And, 4 books in and a Sirius XM radio show, and I'm in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot that comes out next week.
Okay, I need all the details. Stop right there. I need all the I am so excited about this movie.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's going to be great.
The fact that they got and I have a stalking problem with Keanu Reeves. It's I just have to admit it because I know it's an issue. I have to address it. But I have been so excited that they brought back the whole even the Grim Reaper is the same guy. So tell me what you know.
No. You're missing. You're mistaking. You're thinking Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah.
This is Jay and Silent Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Kevin Smith guys.
I go right to Keanu Reeves.
But it's similar.
But it's because they're putting these
two stoners from the 90s. Yeah. But you basically described the whole movie because everybody that's ever been in a Jay and Silent Bob movie is back. So it's it's Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Jason Lee, Rosario Dawson, Chris Hemsworth is in it, Val Kilmer's in it.
Which, if you look at the cast when it came out, and look at where those people have gone since.
Now, exactly.
I can't imagine trying to herd those cats now to get them.
But everyone loves Kevin, and everyone loves the Jay and Silent Bob story. So it's great. And the best part is you're looking at the credits, and it's the credits where they show kind of clips of people as they do it. And I'm right in between Hemsworth, Jericho, and Kilmer. That's who's in order for my credit scene.
Wow.
So, there you go, Ma. I made it. I'm in a movie with Val Kilmer and Chris Hemsworth.
That's what it's going to take to prove to her that you're a success now. It's like, there I am, Mom. Well, I went right to Bill and Ted because there's a whole kind of slew of these movies from our generation. Like even Eddie Murphy putting Coming to America back together with the entire original cast and coming out with a new movie.
Really?
Yes.
He's doing some stand-up as well, I heard.
He's doing...
Saturday Night Live he's doing?
Yeah. So from what I read is that he, when he had kids, his kids couldn't do or see anything that he was doing.
Right.
And so now that his kids are older, that's why he did all the movies,
sure.
the Doolittle movies, all of that stuff. And now that the kids are older, he can kind of dive back into a lot of things.
You got to understand, too, like it's the famous story about comedians and how, there's always kind of a little bit of sadness to them.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do stand-up. And I think once you get in that Hollywood groove, I think people are kind of taking some shots at him for not doing stand-up. I know Saturday Night Live made a joke about him that caused him to not want to go there for years. So the fact that he's coming to terms with that now as a, I don't know, 55-year-old man or whatever he is, it's really cool, though, because I think he's one of those guys that, like, people, if he nails it, is one of the freaking funniest guys.
Absolutely.
Like, go listen to Delirious and listen to Eddie Murphy Raw, but times have also changed. Like, you can't put that album on.
You go quote Eddie Murphy Raw in public, you're going to get some looks.
You're going to get a lot of looks.
Yeah.
If I put that record on and went around and I had a big party at my house and there was people there, you'd be running back up the steps to turn it off very quickly.
Right.
Because it's just a different time and a different place. So
right.
how is he going to deal with that? And that's what I'm excited about. Can
he might not just. I mean, Chappelle doesn't care.
No, I saw Brad Garrett.
Yeah,
dude, I saw his stand up in Vegas. Oh my gosh, I was like looking around, like, is this real? Like, you can't talk like this nowadays, dude. He didn't give a damn. So maybe Eddie will embrace it from that respect. But he's a comedic genius. So
yeah,
the fact
and he's doing Coming to America.
That's very cool.
So Jay and Silent Bob, Bill and Ted, Coming to America. Like, I am so happy that all of these movies are coming out and that they're choosing to do it right.
Yeah.
With
Hopefully,
the whole cast.
And we hope so, because I'll tell you what, there's a couple sequels that came out over the last few years that waited 20 years that really stunk out the joint. I'm thinking about Anchorman 2.
Yep.
And even worse, Zoolander 2.
Oh.
And Dumb and Dumber 2. Why did you do that? It's one of the funniest movies. You waited 20 years to do a sequel, and that's what you come up with?
I know.
So don't do that to us, Eddie and Keanu. I know Jay and Silent Bob didn't do it because this is super funny.
Yeah.
I saw the movie. It's great. So
when is that coming out?
It comes out October 15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of politically incorrect when it comes to rock and roll, I know that you know the Steel Panther guys very well.
Absolutely. They're on Talk is Jericho right now.
Yeah. So I want to bring it up because I was just out in L.A. because that's why I took the red eye, and I went to their album release party at the Whiskey. Yeah. And that's a band that literally is doing everything the way that it was done in 1987.
But I think people go in there knowing the joke. And anybody that has a problem with Steel Panther, it'd be like somebody having a problem with you for having purple hair, knowing you have purple hair, having it explained that you have purple hair, seeing that you have purple hair, and then coming and going, I'm not talking to someone with purple hair. It's ridiculous. You know what you're going to get with Panther, and thank goodness that they exist because it is politically incorrect, but the reason why it works is they're in on the joke.
Right.
And they're the butts of the joke.
Right.
I mean, I was telling them the brilliance of the band is that the new single is called All I Want to Do Is F.
Yeah.
Right?
Which is what it says on the T-shirts.
But in brackets, myself tonight.
Right.
So now it goes from being lascivious, like all these guys are just perverts, to all I want to do is F myself tonight because I'm not going to get any chicks.
Right.
Anyways.
I'm a pathetic loser that lives in my mom's basement.
That's right. And that's why it works.
Yeah.
And people that go there are into it. We toured Europe with them. And we were playing in front of 3,000 or 4,000 people a night. And there's hot chicks and there's hot dudes and there's ugly chicks and ugly dudes and everyone in between. People are just there to have a great time and have some fun. That was a great show to go to. And once again, people sometimes go, oh, well, I think the joke is over by now. And it's like,
no.
Okay, well, the joke might be over for you, but the fact they're also tremendous players who write some of the catchiest songs you're going to get.
Well, I was going to ask you, when you talk about having to overcome.
Right, exactly.
Like, those guys are such amazing players.
Yes. They had to work twice as hard to get mainstream respect, but they're also guys that have been doing this for 30 years. This was their last chance. They went like, we're never going to make it. Let's just have fun. And then when they were having fun, lo and behold, that's when they made it. So they're not jerks because of that. They never take it for granted. They're great players. They get what they're supposed to be doing. And to me, they're just as important to the scene right now as, Shinedown or
they're
Disturbed
such a blast.
or Slipknot or anybody.
But you bring up Disturbed because I know you got to get going. So I've been pushing the vote on the Billboard website about trying to get David Draymond to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. Why do we get no love during the halftime show when it comes to rock at the Super Bowl?
It makes me. I was talking to here's a name drop. Watch your feet. I was talking to Lars.
Oh God!
Seriously, the
sentence you don't get to say very often. So I was talking to Lars.
Lars and I are friends, and I was asking, like, have you guys ever even been invited to do the Super Bowl? I said, well, we got invited to play the pre-Super Bowl party one time in San Francisco or whatever, but never. Like, they're so anti rock and roll that they'll bring in, and nothing is like, who is it this year?
J-Lo and Shakira.
Give me a break. I mean, come on, seriously? It's just about the pomp and circumstance, which they like, but I remember they went through the phase where it was The Who and Paul McCartney and the Stones, and like that was great too. But hello, hey, they did Aerosmith, good.
With Britney Spears.
Right.
And the New Kids, right? Came out with Aerosmith.
How about Metallica? How about Kiss? How about,
AC/DC getting back together.
Hello. How about Slipknot? You want a spectacle? Obviously that might be too heavy, but Metallica needs to play the Super Bowl.
Reunited Guns N' Roses?
Well, their Guns N' Roses are reunited.
That's
They're
what
out
I
there
mean.
now.
They're out there now.
They're stadium-level bands that have never been invited to play. I'm getting a little sick of it. The last year's one, I don't even remember who was in last year's one. It was like Cardi B and like Arthur Michaels or some idiot I'd never heard of. Oh, Arthur Michaels has 38 million followers on Instagram. Well, I ain't one of them.
Meanwhile,
see you later, buddy.
When you go to a regular season game, all you hear is rock music.
They play Metallica during the game more than anybody else.
Yes.
It's Seek and Destroy. It's Enter Sandman. It's Sad But True. It's like over and over and over again. So they're good enough to play in between songs, in between plays, but not good enough to do the Super Bowl. But J-Lo is. Give me one J-Lo song. Sorry, I can't. Oh, Jimmy from the Block.
Yeah.
Maybe. Something like that. Cares. Don't want to see it. Shakira, shake your ass off the stage and get
there's
Metallica
going to be so
on.
much ass on that stage. It's like that's all it's going to be is just ass.
Everyone's going to give hats with asses on them that you put on in the crowd. So it's going to be the world's record for the biggest amount of asses in the crowd. 80,000 asses everywhere.
Chris Jericho, I can't tell you how happy I am that you came in here
Me
today.
too. What a
Everybody
blast.
told me that I was going to love you, and they were right. You were just
cool.
awesome.
I wasn't doing good till the end. You really like the asses with the hat with the
No,
asses
I
on
was
them.
into it from the get-go. You start talking about arguing between Maiden and Judas Priest and talking about the Beatles. You had me at hello.
There you go.
You had me at hello. One more plug for the wrestling tonight on TNT.
Tonight, TNT, 8 o'clock. The show is sold out here in Boston. It's at the Agganis.
The Agganis Arena.
Agganis Arena over here.
At BU, right down the street.
So that's sold out, like I said, an hour, but you can watch the show tonight.
Because Post Malone's at the Garden. That's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, maybe he'll come on over later. I heard he just put a CJ on his face. That's his newest tattoo. I just heard that. So.
Le Champillon.
Le Champillon.
It's my button, man.
But yeah, man, that's it. So the new Fozzy song, Nowhere to Run, go stream it and listen to it and watch it on YouTube and make us all thousandaires.
Thank you so much for coming in. It was such a pleasure to finally meet you.
Cheers, guys. Thank you. Great studio.